Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the long overdue event in which the Isban is added to the game. And unlike last week for April Fools where we did everything in reverse, we're back to normal order. However, some people did mention that they did like when we started off with the teams right at the beginning. So if you guys do prefer that, do let me know again. Obviously we're doing this one just in normal order, but I could try to figure out some kind of other order that we could do it in. That could end up making the teams a little bit earlier on, as we do mention them as the very last thing of the video normally. But anyways, with that being said, there are a couple things to go and mention as far as changes and things. The first thing to kind of mention is we did finally get the calendar. This is actually the latest I believe they've ever posted. We got it on Saturday. This is the first Monday video since then, so I figured I'd briefly go over this. The only really noteworthy things to mention here is that we have a Tower of Doom event next week, which will be bringing in the yellow polearm, so we'll have half the colors within the game, basically the pre-nerf journey troops. We'll have a Vault event that same weekend, which is starting on the 19th. And aside from that, the May events, the spring events, that's going to be lasting for 2 weeks, is starting on the 29th of this month, right at the end, going straight into May itself. So we'll have a 2-week-long event that brings in a new legendary, a new pet to go along with it, as well as a spring armor if you didn't already end up picking it up in the past. As far as some other things, they did end up changing the cartographer. Of course, last journey event ended up having an extra magic and an extra gem spawn, or sorry, an extra gem spawn, just an extra gem spawn. But anyways, they nerfed it down. Unfortunately, they didn't end up buffing up all the other ones to where it was. Instead, they just ended up nerfing this one. Would have been much better if they just buffed every single one of this one, but it was a mistake that it was supposed to be that way, which is unfortunate, and hopefully it'll still do some things to make Journey easier, because gosh, are this thing's still useless. We are going to be using some Chalcedony this week, which is one of those nerfed Journey troops for the lower level rarity teams, as it's still like good enough to get it done, even though I don't even think it can be shiny at all. However, yeah, they did end up nerfing this guy, so it's a little unfortunate, especially if anyone actually upgraded them to shininess. Of course, we ended up avoiding it, as we have been with all of them. We're just hoarding all of our shiny keys for whenever they add them to Legends and Mythics. But yeah, they did end up nerfing him. Aside from that, there are 2 things now in the drop table, and by that I mean 1 thing now in the drop table. Keep in mind, if you did end up reading this on the official posts, it is actually not correct. It says King Stormguard is now available as possible drops in Glory Gem Guild and VIP chests, all that kind of thing. However, of course, we covered a video last Friday on the new Mythic, and that new Mythic is still in drop table. If we check right here, there's no timer here, as per usual for Mythics. However, it is still the only Mythic in Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest drop table, meaning that until Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you know, every day until Friday reset day, we will only have her in the drop table. So while this is true that it is going to be added to the drop table, this is the Mythic from the previous season, it won't be so until Friday. So if you are looking to do this, the earliest you can do this is Friday, not today. So do not try opening today, otherwise you'll just get the useless Mythic from last Friday. Aside from that, one thing you can go for today, I haven't actually tested this because I have no keys left as I just finished using them. However, Judgment should be in the Vault key drop table now. So if you have any Vault keys from last Vault weekend or want to go to the next Vault weekend, you can go farm them on the 19th right over there. You can end up doing so then, so as well as right now. So if you have any Vault keys that you want to go, if you didn't end up getting the Judgment, which is the tarot card from last season, from the last campaign, you can do so now. Only other thing to really mention then is this Friday event. Figured we just throw it in here, why not? Since we're already in this little tab thing. We will be having a faction event for the Deep Hive. With that, we're going to be getting a new tank that you can end up using for it. I forget what its current tank is, but this might be a better alternative. Obviously, generally, the bulk of your team is just spamming Beetrix until you win, so you'd probably still run 3 Beetrix, even 4 Beetrix if you want to. However, you can run this as your tank. It deals some true damage to the first enemy, and then has a chance to extra turn, and as well as gaining some of its mana back. It has a little bit of score reduction to go with it, as well as impervious. So it is tankier than that of Beetrix. Otherwise, you would just go for Beetrix. But this could be a good alternative for if you still need to go run Pure Faction for that faction. So worth considering. Anyways, on to the other things. Let's go into the troop. So this troop is very weird. Aside from it not being a construct in a construct-based location, you can stock up on brown purple arcanes if nothing else. It is only 200 glory each, so great time to stock up on them. But the troop itself is very weird. It has another one of those what on earth does this summon do categories, where it summons something in a category that technically exists but doesn't exist. Of course, there are a bunch of types that a troop can be. In this case, a Daemon Mystic. Really weird that he's not a construct in a construct kingdom. But anyways, obviously, there are also weird other ones. So, ones that don't fit this category. Things like Spider, Book, Null, Hag. I think I'm forgetting a few again, but there are categories of summons that do not fit into any specific category, as in not a kingdom, not a troop type, just specific weird categories. And this one summons books. I was messing around with this a little bit, so I'm not sure if this is a full list, but I saw it try to summon 4 different things. Those 4 things include, not itself, I just put this here so we know his name, Isban. But there's 3 things that he summons. The Book of Secrets, the Book of Witches, and the Tome of Evil! But I also saw him do a weird 4th one, where he summoned something that instantly died, which I assume is just an invalid summon or something weird. Maybe some kind of future summon. But yeah, those are the 4 summons I saw. These 3 and some weird invalid one that died instantly that I assume is just an improper value on them. That will probably be fixed at some point in a couple years. No, it's kidding. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's just a glitch this morning or if any of you guys have seen that too. But yeah, he has 3 books and a Null summon of some kind. Not a Null as in the troop Null. Null as in N-U-L-L. Just he summons something and then it instantly dies in some weird mechanic thing. But yeah, it's just these 3 that he seems to summon. Unless there's another one that I missed, but I was messing around for it for about 10 minutes. And those were the only 3 I saw him actually successfully summon when he clicked his ability. As far as what he actually does with his ability, aside from the summoning that book, though that is the, I guess the least relevant part of it, but the interesting mechanic, I guess, since it's a new summon category. But his ability is interesting if he had any follow-up that isn't the summon. He gives a bunch of magic to a random ally. This is not bad if there were 2 other caveats to this. If it wasn't random, so you could actually target who that magic goes to, and if he had any amount of mana accumulation, as in like create purple to go back into him, create brown to go back into him, or anything that was even remotely a chance of extra turning. Him having none of those things makes him really, really bad. Not to mention the books he summons aren't really the greatest of troops, so overall, not really a troop you're ever really going to use, it's just an extra star for Hellcrag. With that being said, Hellcrag does reach the star level of, what is this now, power level 17, as of the addition of this troop, assuming I'm not missing any other upgrade. Never mind, level 18. Unlock 3. Oh, you know why I don't have this? Never mind, I could actually go 1 star higher. I have an untraded Chalcedony from when I had refund, and I'm not going to bother trading it, so I guess we'll just be 1 star lower for now. But yeah, it's funny. But yeah, it can actually be 1 star higher than that, but I deliberately didn't upgrade my my Chalcedony. Anyways, while we're here, I might as well go and show the event keys. Of course, the event key drop table for this week is that of Hellcrag, as this is a Hellcrag event week. As far as things that are not in drop table, the list is actually quite large. This includes things like Catharix, the tower, or just the tower, as well as the 4 faction troops from the, where's the thing? Obsidian Deps or whatever it's called. Yeah, Obsidian Deps. So those 6 are not in drop table. Everything else that you see here is, for the most part, nothing really too enticing. I would have said in the past, probably Chalcedony, until all Journey troops got nerfed into the ground. She was among one of the better ones. This thing's original trait was going to be a good reflector, but then they nerfed that into the ground. There's some utility trips you use here occasionally, like this is really good in construct-based teams, which you'll be using a bit this week. So if you want to get this guy to help you out with things like the... actually, you'd mostly just use it for Underspire this week. So if you wanted to help out with Underspire, you could end up doing that if you were missing some of the better options like Catharix to auto-win the Underspire. But otherwise, not really much to do unless you're just simply trying to get stars up to level 18 for the Hellcrag Kingdom, if you're going to go open any event keys there. Anyways, as far as other things that we have going on this week, if we go over to the guild-related event, we do have an invasion. Of course, as per usual, the troop does gain double magic and double score if you end up using it, so I highly advise doing so. The weapon we end up getting from it is not that ideal. It's just basically hit 2 enemies based on Daemon allies. Nothing really too special there. If you want to go and use... you ideally want to buy up to tier 3, so you can get access to the troop and the weapon. However, if you do wish to use more than one of this new troop on your team, you do need to buy at least a tier 4. Though do keep in mind, doing this does not increase your amount of multiplier. You'll only be able to have it up to 1 of it having on your team. And of course, you do want to put him on your team as he does gain double the amount of magic. So if you can double up on him, both of them will, of course, will have the double magic, though they do not stack the double score. And aside from that, just plays as you normally would. Just go through all the battles. You'll eventually be up against 4 towers. You use the Tower Slayers, of which there are 3 of them, oddly enough, which you can end up using. The full list is right over here if we get into a battle thingy, which I think I showed all 3 on the lower rarity team, just to have them all there. But if we go type in tower here, we can see the 3 of them right over here, not counting the tower. Keep in mind, these other 2 do not gain double magic, and you have to always have at least one of this guy on your team. However, there is also the Bone Catapult, which comes with the addition of having a skull boost ratio, and the slightly better one if you're going to put only one or the other. Oh wait, I thought one of these created Bone Storm. Oh no, this guy gets an extra chance to hit. I could have sworn one of these had Bone Storm. Oh yeah, sorry, this was the one with Bone Storm. That's the thing I overlooked. But yeah, this guy has a 30% chance to do a second hit. But keep in mind that this thing's always doing double damage, so in many situations that might still hit higher overall. And this guy, the main thing that he has is summon a Bone Storm when an enemy dies. So if you end up getting a kill there, you'll end up getting Skull Storm. And this is pretty relevant as all of these troops do have 5 times damage if you have them fully ascended to the towers, which once you've reached the 4 towers will be every single thing that you are facing within the battle. Anyways, as far as the other weekly events we have going on, we kind of technically showed it on the calendar earlier. But Tuesday, we're going to be having the Obsidian Deps faction event. Wednesday, also keep in mind, one thing really relevant about this is the weapon that you'll be able to get. I'm not sure if I showed any of the teams with it yet, but you'll be able to go get this weapon right here. The Obsidian something, some kind of book. This thing, the Obsidian Labram. This explodes a bunch of gems and then summons an Obsidian Deps troop. Not only are most of these pretty bulky with skull reduction, but this is also just a really nice all-rounder mana accumulation weapon. There are normally better options to be using on particular teams, but if you're just looking for one, just all-rounded one, especially if you don't have wand yet, this is pretty much your go-to weapon to slot it into second slot, third, fourth, anything but first, because you normally want to utilize the summon to be able to tank in front of you. But it's a really good just all-round mana accumulation weapon, so if you're still looking for one or just want to have it, definitely highly advised. It is among one of the better faction weapons, but you can only get it tomorrow in either Soulforge or from the faction event. So do make sure to pick this up on the Tuesday faction event, as you'll have that 24-hour period to get it, and it might not be available again for several months, if not to a year, so do make sure to go get it. It's not an absolute must-have hero weapon. You can definitely live without it, especially in the current meta of mana accumulation for hero, but it's still a nice option. I still use it on occasion as well, so I believe for some of the events this week, most notably Underspire, since it is restricted specifically to Underspire weapons as well, so you can't use wand or similar good options. But anyways, aside from that, so yeah, make sure to get that on Tuesday. Tomorrow, faction event, starting in whatever your timer says there. Wednesday, well, it's showing the wrong pet right here. We are getting one of the ones from Hellcrag. I forget what bonus. I think it's just for Construct, or the Hellcrag Kingdom bonus. This Thursday, we're getting a Geomancer hero class. Pretty decent hero class. Compared to all the Baryon Brown hero classes, I feel like some of the other ones are used quite a bit more. But I believe it does have some spell reduction. It does have, most notably, 50% mana start to all constructs. But otherwise, it's a pretty standard, just Baryon Brown hero classes. Many of them exist within the game. You pretty much only use it if you're using a construct team, is the bottom line when it comes to this thing. And this Friday, we somewhat mentioned it earlier as well, but we're going to be getting a new Delve troop. This guy right here. We're going to be having a Delve event for the Deep Hive. And with the Deep Hive, we'll end up getting a new layout. We'll end up getting this new troop, which also ends up changing the faction team to him plus 3 Beetrixes, where you can still stick with the traditional 4 Beetrix for the battle. Anyways, aside from that, Soulforge, one really relevant thing to end up mentioning, and that is Kronos. Free-to-play players would probably know this a little bit better, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is the first time Kronos has been in Soulforge since he was in the Kingdom Pass, or the second time, but I'm pretty sure this is the first time that he's been available for Diamond, so if you still end up needing him, definitely a good idea to potentially do so. He's not the greatest troop out there, though he does have some pretty good synergy with Daughter of Time, and obviously, oddly enough, also with Stellaryx. While most people don't use him with Stellaryx, this is some pretty good overall Stellaryx synergy. Ever since he got the damage buff, Stellaryx that is, there's been less of a need to end up doing him, because the main thing that he benefits for is giving even more extra turn potential to your Stellaryx, but with how much damage Stellaryx has these days, it generally wins before it loses its turn. Not always, but for the most part, its biggest gimmick that it has these days is enchant all allies when it gains an extra turn. It's barely even used this much for its Hourglass gem, especially because Daughter of Time is basically a better option for Hourglass gems if the thing you need is purely the Hourglass mechanic. Daughter of Time is still better. It just uses different color of blue-yellow. But he does have enchant all allies when you get an extra turn. And this is a weird mechanic, and I believe still one of the only ones, if not the only one that does it. It enchants all allies when you get an extra turn of any kind. This isn't a 4 times or 5 times on board. Even if you do an ability that gains an extra turn, you will end up getting this. So if you cast like Rope Dar or Daughter of Time or, anything that just simply does an extra turn on ability, like all the goblins, stuff like that, it doesn't even matter if you get one on the board, it will trigger this effect. Hopefully they'll do this more in the future. I'm actually kind of surprised. We've had like, what, almost 6 mythics since this guy? 5, 6? How many has it been? Losing track. But there has been at least a handful of mythics since then, and I'm surprised they have not re-added this mechanic. I believe he's still exclusive in having a mechanic that works like this, and obviously there's a lot of use cases you could do for this, for simply an extra turn rather than 4 times, 5 times, as most troops tend to be. Pretty much all of them. But anyways, that's the only pretty noteworthy thing in Soulforge as far as troop side of things. As far as weapons, nothing really. Most notable one is obviously the one we already mentioned, the Obsidian Labrim. Get that tomorrow on the Tuesday faction event, either from the Soulforge itself or from partaking in the event and spending however many gems it is. I think it's like 210, somewhere around there, however many it is, to end up getting it there. Otherwise, you get it from Soulforge. As far as weapons, nothing really, unless you're just looking for a utility weapon to end up using throughout the week, but that weapon you were pretty much just getting tomorrow anyway, so for the most part, unless you need it for kingdom upgrades, there isn't really much to get as far as weapons are concerned. Anyways, with that, was there anything else big to mention? Invasion, that. I think we are good to go into the teams, all of which, as per usual, will be in the description below if you want to go and copy and paste any of them. So, of course, this team is not actually a team. It was just to show Isban summons, the Book of Secrets, the Book of Witches, and the Tome of Evil. But now, the actual teams. For the invasion event, we will be restricted specifically to constructs. However, you do generally want to use the constructs that are good against towers, and of course, have to use at least one Geolith, if not multiple. They do not stack their extra points for multiple, but you do get double magic for each one. So this will have double this amount of magic, this one will have double this amount of magic, so it is still better doubling up on this compared to using the other towers, even though you do have two whole additional options to end up utilizing for it. Aside from that, of course, you do have the Skull Pokes, which you want to be utilizing with your 50% score reduction, making it an overall really good faction troop to end up utilizing for it. We have our Stone Slicer weapon. This, unfortunately, is not from this Kingdom event. It is from Zoom, but if you do have it laying around, you ideally want to end up using this. It's one of the only few weapons that create double mana that do feed back into itself. It creates purple and brown, which means you'll get the purple back into your own weapon, and then the brown into your Goliath, or whatever other browns you might be end up using to end up utilizing with it. Speaking of things that utilize brown, we do have a Lord of Slaughter back here, and while it'll be a little bit harder for him to end up getting mana, he will eventually get it off the natural enchant from just doing the game mode, from having the potion effect, and he does end up converting all those browns that you have in excess into Doom Skulls, which will then be utilized into your 5 times or however much multiplier you have, extra skull damage, which will end up doing a lot of damage to all the towers and basically insta-win you the fight. It also creates a Doomstormer starter battle, though unless you get this rolling really quickly, he generally isn't going to get value from that, but is a factor nonetheless. And we're just using this Mana Accumulate for the entire team. As far as the cheaper team, I think we go down the... no, I was going to say the Chalcedony route, but no, we actually are allowed to use any weapon here. So we do end up going down the Wand route, but of course, you can go down any Mana Accumulation weapon you want. This is not weapon restricted at all. You're allowed to run any weapon in the entire game. So whatever you have as your best mana accumulation weapon for this team is what you would end up utilizing. Otherwise, we're just going with the one singular Goliath, assuming you're not buying deep enough to have 2 on your team. We're going with the Blackfire Cannon, as he has a chance to hit a second time, and the Bone Catapult almost entirely for its Bone Storm, but you can end up replacing out one of these for your Chalcedony or some other form of mana accumulation if you feel whatever your weapon to do so is not enough mana accumulation. Next, we have ourselves the faction event for the Obsidian Deps. This is a brown-purple restriction, though you're allowed to use any color hero weapons still. For the first team, we're just going with a Guard's Avatar Quick Kill. Whenever you're not able to run Rowain, we of course have Guard's Avatar, and just running that with Surqua and Headley. We do have access to Leprechaun, so you can literally put hero with anything as far as damage sources in the middle, and then just run a Leprechaun to go and mana accumulate for it, and you should be pretty good. We actually end up doing that some on this other team, where we're using Angry Mob as our secondary mana accumulator, Leprechaun as our other, and then you just put whatever in first slot, ideally your hero, tank, or in this case Hiking Iron Gut, and then put your primary damage source over in your third slot, in this case a Zolgoth. And you can end up doing that and end up killing out pretty nicely. Though, of course, if you don't have Zolgoth, you can use Catherics. If you don't have Catherics, there are other just high damage troops you can end up putting there and end up winning you the fight that way. For the pure faction fight we have here, we are going with 1 Dark Golem into 3 Obsidiaxis. Though you can just go with 4 Obsidiaxis if you really want to. The Dark Golem we're using here basically just does a small gem explode and does some more if there's some skulls nearby. The main reason we're using him is almost entirely because of what this thing's final trait is. If it wasn't for this final trait, you could just run all him. But there's a 30% chance to create an evil gargoyle gem whenever his turn begins, which will apply a negative stats effect based on whoever takes it. So if you take it, it'll apply it to the enemy. If the enemy takes it, it'll apply it to you. But it basically just applies a single random negative stats effect to a random enemy or ally if the enemy ends up taking it. The main reason why we want to have this guy here is simply so that we can be the ones who end up taking it. Because if otherwise this thing has no way to go and deal with his own blocks, as far as his gargoyle gems and everything, while he does boost ratio off of these things, he does not have any way to destroy them off his own ability. So you're going to have some other troop for that, and that is what we're using Dark Golem for. Next, we have the Geomancer class event. This will be restricted specifically to constructs from Hellcrag. As far as our weapon, we're just going with pretty traditional Black Manacle, Chalcedony to go feed it brown, and then Double Sphinx almost entirely because of his Stone Link, which will end up feeding us just an extra +2 brown in order to get our purple and brown up just a little bit quicker to get the weapon going. You can also put into a little bit of yellow instead of it, if you so choose, in order to get Chalcedony going just a little bit quicker since it's a little bit blocked. But she does have a pretty high mana cost, as do all of the Journey troops these days. Next, we have ourselves the Underspire as far as the final team here, as we'll be covering the faction stuff on weekend, on Friday once it actually comes out. As far as the Underspire is concerned, this, of course, is a Hellcrag restriction, which means you also have to use a Hellcrag weapon. And speaking of Hellcrag weapons, make sure to go get your Obsidian Lebram, or however on earth you say this. I'm pretty sure I've said it like 3 different times. Lebram? James? What's that one? What's that one basketball player's name? LeBron? I think that's with an N instead of an M. But anyways, we're going to be utilizing this. If you don't have this yet, just wait till tomorrow. Just don't do your Underspire battles today. Just buy up your torches if you need. Buy tier 1, tier 2, however many you normally do. And then tomorrow when you have access to the weapon, well, you just run the weapon then. But even if you don't have it, if you have this thing, you can get this in event key drop table. Explodes a bunch of brown gems. It creates a bunch of brown gems. Explodes pretty much the entire board. And just really tanky. Has perpetual Brownstorm as well. Or not perpetual, but gains the Brownstorm at start of battle. So you can end up utilizing that for most of the battle if you can win quick enough. We have this thing to spam for basically exactly what that does, but it also gets to do some resummon. So you always have a tank going there. And then just every Catharix we have. Otherwise, just run whatever other damage source, or if you don't have that, like a Chalcedony or something similar, whatever you want to run there. As far as the super low rarity team, we end up going down that Chalcedony route. Keep in mind on the other one, though, this team is not pure construct. Catharix is not a construct, so do be wary of that if you do go some alternative mana accumulation for that, as it does not count as a construct troop. However, this team does. So we're going to be using one of the weapons that's available on Soulforge this week from Hellcrag. It creates a bunch of red and brown gems. Do keep in mind, you might have to go out of your way to slightly set a red troop, as there aren't as many good red troops in this kingdom compared to the billion browns that exist. Chalcedony we're using as a primary mana accumulator aside from the weapon itself. We're going to be using this Drake just because it has a little bit of gem explode, so we can end up getting some of it back. There also are technically bosses during raids or during Underspire. Every single one of the dragons on the fights, not counting the Rubrath fight because there is no Rubrath on the Rubrath fight, but on the other 6 fights, the 5 gem dragons and Diamantina, this does do 5 times damage, so if you have it fully ascended, so worth considering. It's just a lot of damage. It'll one-shot them pretty much, depending on your damage range relative to them, so if nothing else, 2-shot them. So it could be a really good way to deal with the dragons if you find there being an issue, but you can also just use them on standard battles just for some chip damage and mana accumulation. And then, of course, similar to the faction, you can almost just run the faction team here if you really want to. We have ourselves one of the dragon, just here for a little bit of chip damage, and it would be a nice last resort if they happen to somehow kill through your whole team. Though, like most of this kingdom, pretty much everything here has 50% score reduction. Actually, does the hero class have it too? Yes, it does. Literally, the whole team has 50% score reduction. They're only going to be casting through that. They're not going to be sculling through that, that's for sure. But anyways, guys, that'll wrap it up for now. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. All the teams mentioned in this video are in the description. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. We'll be tonight, as we do every single night here on the channel, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be messing around with the invasion event and everything else that this week has to offer. We'll be messing around with that then. Hope you all have a wonderful week, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.